The first thing I noticed about her was the silence. Not the tense kind, not the empty kind, but the heavy kind, like a pressure that filled the entire docking bay. The Karev Alliance soldiers stood in a half-circle around her, weapons holstered, but hands hovering a little too close. Nobody dared step within 10 meters. She sat alone on a metal bench, tall, armored, her posture rigid as stone. Her silver-blue skin shimmered under the docking bay lights, and her white hair, braided tightly, fell down her back like a blade. Her wrists were bound, not because she was dangerous, though she obviously was, but because she had refused to speak after returning from a failed mission. Rumors whispered through the station faster than oxygen flow. Don't go near her. She's a berserker-class warrior. One wrong word, and she'll rip your throat out. She lost everything. Doesn't trust humans. Don't even make eye contact. Naturally, hearing all that only made me more curious. My name is Daniel Hart, engineer, human liaison, and, apparently, the only idiot on the station willing to walk toward a woman every species insisted was lethal. But she didn't look angry. She looked exhausted. So I ignored the warnings, lifted my food tray, and walked straight toward her. Gasps rippled through the docking bay. A few soldiers cursed. One actually yelled, "Human, step away. That is Commander Alindra. She is unstable." Alindra didn't move, didn't look at me, didn't even flinch. The isolation around her felt wrong. Even. So I sat down beside her. Just sat, close enough our shoulders almost touched, and placed my food tray between us. The silence cracked. Her eyes, glowing pale violet, finally turned toward me. It was a glare sharp enough to puncture armor. "You," she hissed quietly, "are either fearless or foolish." I shrugged. "Can't I be both?" Her lips twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. "You were warned." "Why ignore it?" she asked. I leaned forward. "You looked lonely." That made her stiffen. Her gaze darted away, jaw tightening. "Lonely?" she murmured, voice low and almost broken. "You know nothing of the word." "Then tell me." Middle. The truth behind her silence. An hour passed before she spoke again. During that hour, soldiers stared at us like they were watching an execution in slow motion. Twice, her sub-commander tried to pull me away. Twice, Alindra snarled a warning so sharp it froze them in place. Finally, she exhaled deeply. "You humans, you have a strange insistence on touching wounds you cannot see." "Only if someone's hurting," I said. Her eyes softened, but only slightly. "My squad. All 24. Gone." My heart cracked. "I'm sorry. I failed them," she whispered. "A commander who returns alone is a disgrace. A warrior who shows emotion is weak. And a Karev who mourns," her throat tightened, "is unfit to lead." "So they isolate you?" I asked. "No," her voice hardened. "I isolate myself. Grief is a burden I cannot allow others to carry." I studied her face, strong, lined with exhaustion and grief. "And what if you don't have to carry it alone?" This time, her head turned sharply. "Do not offer comfort, you do not understand. Try me." Alindra held my gaze for a long time, long enough that even the soldiers shifted nervously. "You humans," she whispered, "are infuriating." "Thank you." That was not a compliment. Still taking it. Her shoulders dropped slightly, as if the weight on them cracked just enough for air to seep in. The attack. The alarm blared before she could reply. A piercing shriek echoed through the station as the emergency lights flickered red. Soldiers snapped to position. A voice shouted through the intercom. "Unknown vessel detected. Enemy boarding pods incoming." Alindra stood instantly, her chains slicing through her wrists as she broke them effortlessly. She's free, someone yelled. But she wasn't attacking. She grabbed my wrist, her touch burning with urgency. Human, stay behind me. The boarding pod slammed into the hangar door like meteors. Metal screeched. Sparks rained. And then, boom, the door exploded inward. Creatures poured through, six-legged, armored, screeching, firing plasma bolts everywhere. The soldiers panicked, scattering for cover. Alindra didn't hide. She charged. A blur of motion, fast, lethal, beautiful. Her arm blade snapped out, slicing through the first invader's armor like paper. Plasma fire grazed her shoulder, but she didn't slow. Entire squads collapsed under her ferocity, but there were too many. And then one creature, larger than the rest, barreled toward me. I froze. A shadow leapt between us. Alindra drove her blade into the creature's throat and roared, a raw, primal sound that shook me to the core. "You do not touch him," she snarled. Her? Protecting me? When the battle finally ended, the docking bay was a graveyard of metal and blood. Soldiers stared at Alindra with stunned disbelief. Her breathing was ragged. Her shoulder dripped silver blood. But she stood tall. And then, slowly, she turned toward me, ending the whisper that changed everything. The bay was silent again, this time in awe. I approached her cautiously. "Alindra, you okay?" She stared at me, eyes burning with something intense. Something conflicted. "You," she whispered, sat beside me when no one else would. I shrugged lightly. "You looked like you needed someone. And you stayed," she continued. "Even after warnings. Even after danger." "Of course." She stepped closer, so close I could feel the heat of her armor. Her voice dropped, soft and trembling. "Human, Daniel, I am forbidden to kneel before any being." I blinked. "Okay. But in the moment you were threatened," she whispered, "I nearly did." Time stopped. Her hand, blood-stained and shaking, lifted to touch my cheek. The soldiers looked horrified, but she ignored them all. "Daniel," she breathed, "tell me, do you still see me as dangerous?" I smiled gently. "No." "Then what do you see?" I swallowed. "Someone worth sitting beside." Her eyes widened, truly, fully widened, as if nobody in her entire life had ever spoken to her like that. A single tear shimmered down her cheek. "Daniel," she whispered, voice breaking, "say it again. That you're worth sitting beside?" Her breath shuddered. And then, for the first time, the mighty Karev warrior let herself lean forward, resting her forehead against mine. "Softly, so softly I almost missed it," she whispered. "Then don't leave me." I didn't. And from that day on, nobody dared warn me about approaching her again. Because she made sure of it.